Can he ever trust her again? A man's battle with love and betrayal. What would you do if the person you trusted most in the world betrayed you? Would you stay, or would you walk away? Imagine that you've built your life around someone. Their presence has shaped your world, your future, your everything. Then, without warning, you discover that all of it was a lie that leaves you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and trust. Before we dive deeper into this story today, titled, Can He Ever Trust Her Again? A Man's Battle with Love and Betrayal, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this journey, and give this video thumbs up. Your support energized us for sharing these intimate stories. And remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. David Harris had spent over 15 years with his wife Emily. To the outside world, they were the perfect couple, the kind that seemed to have it all. A beautiful home, 2 kids, shared dreams of the future. They laughed together, they fought together, they grew together. They seemed invincible until one fateful afternoon, everything came crashing down. It all started when David found a series of texts on Emily's phone. Innocent enough at first, she'd been distant lately, but David chalked it up to the stress of their busy lives. But those messages, they revealed something he couldn't ignore. Words he never thought he'd read. I love you. I can't wait to see you. And most devastating of all, don't worry, I'll always be here. In that moment, David's world shattered. What do you do when the person you thought would never hurt you has crossed a line so far beyond your comprehension? What happens when love, your love, isn't enough to protect you from betrayal? David confronted Emily that night. Her face, once full of warmth and affection, now seemed distant, almost vacant. She didn't deny it, she didn't apologize right away either. She said, I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know how to stop. David was faced with the unthinkable. Could he ever trust her again? The woman who had shared his life for over a decade? Was forgiveness possible after such a breach of trust? Or was this the end of everything they had built together? The man who had once sworn to love her, for better or for worse, now found himself standing at a crossroads. A choice that would define not only their future, but his own sense of self-worth. David was torn. On one hand, the life they had built together flashed before his eyes. The first date, their wedding day, the births of their children. On the other hand, there was the reality that couldn't be ignored. Emily had betrayed him. The man she had turned to wasn't just a fleeting mistake. He was a part of her life. A secret life. How was she going to explain it? He needed answers. He needed to understand what had led to this, what he had missed. Had he been so blind to the cracks forming in their relationship? What was it that Emily hadn't been able to give him, emotionally, mentally, or physically, that had driven her into someone else's arms? But more than that, he had to ask himself, could he ever trust her again? Could love, in its purest form, overcome the scars of betrayal? Stay with us as we follow David's journey, his battle with the echoes of love, betrayal, and the question that haunts him every single day: can he ever trust her again? Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. Let me take you inside his world for a moment. Imagine the shock, the disbelief, the crushing weight of betrayal. This was the world David Harris woke up to. A life he had built, a marriage he thought was unbreakable, suddenly shattered in an instant. His wife, Emily, the woman he had promised to love, cherish, and honor, came to him with words that would change everything. No warnings, no signs, just a simple confession. I've been seeing someone else. His hands trembled as he read the messages. Each word seemed to echo in his mind. I love you. I can't wait to see you again. Simple words, yet so loaded with the truth of his wife's secret life. His heart, once so sure and steady, was now full of confusion, anger, and sorrow. How could this have happened? How could Emily, the woman he shared everything with, the mother of his children, betray him so completely? Imagine, for just a moment, the thoughts racing through his head. A lifetime together? Was it all a lie? Were the moments they shared just fleeting illusions? His mind could barely comprehend what his heart was screaming at him. How could someone he trusted so completely have hidden a secret this big for so long? David wasn't just grappling with the betrayal of trust. He was struggling with the loss of something so integral to his identity. The love he once believed to be unshakable was now fractured. And with every passing moment, the weight of the question grew. Could he ever forgive her? Could their love survive this betrayal? Could he rebuild what had been torn apart, or was it forever broken? What would you do if you were in his shoes? Would you stay and fight for the love you once had, or would the wounds of betrayal run too deep? Would the thought of starting over, of trusting someone again, even seem possible? Or would the fear of being hurt again overshadow everything else? Every night, David would lie in the dark, his mind racing through the same thoughts. How could he look at Emily the same way again? How could he ever erase the images of those messages, the cold realization that his wife had loved another man? And yet, there was a part of him that wanted to forgive. He wanted to believe that love could overcome even this. The question, though, remained, could he ever trust her again? David's mind wasn't just filled with questions about Emily's betrayal. He was now questioning himself. What had he missed? What had gone wrong? Had he been blind to the cracks forming in their relationship? Was there something he could have done differently to prevent this? In the midst of all this pain, David couldn't help but wonder if love was enough. Could forgiveness truly heal the wounds left by betrayal? Or did some scars run too deep to ever fade? He was at a crossroads, a place where the choice between staying and leaving wasn't clear. His heart was torn, his thoughts scattered. The man who had once been so sure of his life now found himself uncertain of everything he thought he knew. He didn't have the answers, but he knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same. The road ahead was unclear, and one thing was certain. David's battle with love and betrayal had just begun. Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. Imagine this. You've just been told the truth, but it's not the truth you expected. It's not just a simple mistake or a slip-up. It's a complete betrayal of everything you thought you knew. David Harris, a man who had built his life on trust and love, had just learned that his wife Emily had been hiding something for far longer than he ever could have imagined. The affair wasn't just physical. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. No, Emily had shared her heart, her dreams, her fears with another man. She had confided in him in ways she had never done with David. And as she sat there, trying to explain her actions, David felt the ground beneath him tremble. Each word she spoke was like a hammer, driving a wedge deeper into the foundation of their marriage. Emily hadn't just betrayed his trust, she had shattered the very essence of their bond. The man she had sworn to love for better or worse was now sitting across from her, unable to recognize the woman he had once called his wife. How could this happen? How could she have kept this secret? And worse, how could she have given so much of herself to another person? With every revelation, his world seemed to crumble further. He was no longer just a husband. He was now a man betrayed, a man grappling with the weight of emotional devastation. And the truth was, the affair wasn't just about the love Emily had given to another man. It was about the emotional intimacy that had been ripped away from him. David had once believed they shared something unique, a connection that transcended the ordinary. In those early years, they were a team. There was no question too big, no hurdle too high. But now, with each word Emily spoke, he realized just how much he had missed. She'd let someone else into her heart, into a space that had once been his alone. He was consumed by anger. Rage burned through him, the kind of anger that makes you question everything you knew about the person you trusted most. How could she betray him like this? How could she let another man in to touch her heart and body in ways he never had? It felt like the ultimate violation, a wound so deep that it seemed impossible to heal. That there was more at stake than just his own hurt. What about their children? What about their home? The life they had built together? The memories, the shared dreams, the promises? Could it all be destroyed in an instant by one person's actions? David wasn't just questioning his marriage, he was questioning the very future he had envisioned. Was it worth fighting for, or was it all a lie? Every part of him wanted to walk away, to leave it all behind, to walk out the door and never look back. But there was another part of him, a part he couldn't ignore, the part that still loved her. Despite the hurt, despite the anger, despite everything, he still loved Emily. The question was no longer if he could forgive her, it was whether he could learn to trust her again. I couldn't just erase the hurt. Love alone wasn't enough to heal the wound. There was no quick fix, no easy solution. The question that kept him up at night was simple, yet so profound. Can he ever trust her again? As the days passed, the emotional tug-of-war inside David intensified. He wanted to believe they could fix this. He wanted to believe that love could conquer all. But love alone couldn't undo the years of deception, the pain that had already taken root in his heart. David wasn't just grappling with Emily's betrayal. He was also fighting a battle within himself. Could he ever look at her the same way again? Could he ever share the same kind of intimacy they once had? Could he ever feel truly safe in her love again? And if he couldn't, what did that mean for their future, for their children, for the life they had once dreamed of together? With each step he took toward their home, David knew that the man who walked in that door would never be the same. The weight of betrayal was too heavy, the emotional scars too deep. The question, now, wasn't about whether they could go back to the way things were. It was about whether David could find a way forward, a way to rebuild trust, or whether this was the end of the road. Click subscribe. And remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. David Harris had always believed in the sanctity of his marriage. To him, it was a partnership built on trust, love, and mutual respect. But what happens when that foundation is shattered? What happens when the person you thought you knew best, the one you shared your deepest dreams with, betrays you in the most painful way imaginable? For David, it wasn't just the affair itself. It was the realization that something had been wrong, long before he had ever suspected. The emotional distance between them had been there for months, maybe even longer, and yet, in his heart, he never thought it would come to this. The truth about Emily's betrayal had rocked him to his core, but it also left him wondering. How could he have missed the signs? Infidelity is a deeply complex issue, and it's often a symptom of much deeper emotional needs that have gone unmet. In David's case, we can see that there were clear signs: emotional distance, a lack of communication, and a growing disconnect between him and Emily. When these needs are not addressed, one or both partners can begin to look elsewhere for comfort, validation, or intimacy. It's not always about the other person. Sometimes it's about what's missing in the relationship itself. For David, the idea that there were cracks in the foundation long before the affair was a bitter pill to swallow. He had always thought that their relationship was strong. They had built a life together, had children, shared memories, but somehow, somewhere, they had drifted apart. And now all of that seemed to have crumbled into dust. Infidelity doesn't just affect the heart, it affects the brain. Studies have shown that the betrayed partner experiences profound emotional and physical pain, similar to the trauma response seen in victims of violence or assault. The body goes into a state of heightened stress, cortisol levels spike, and the heart races. In many ways, it's as if the brain is responding to a physical injury, not just an emotional one. David wasn't just emotionally devastated, he was physically affected by the betrayal. His body, like many others who've experienced infidelity, reacted to the shock. The anxiety, the sleepless nights, the constant tension in his chest, all of it was a response to a trauma he never saw coming. Infidelity, it seems, doesn't just break trust. It breaks the very person who has been betrayed. But what does it take to heal? Can a relationship survive infidelity, or is the damage simply too great to overcome? Experts in relationships and therapy have some sobering statistics. Research shows that about 30% of couples are able to rebuild trust and move past the affair. But it's important to note that the road to recovery is rarely smooth. It takes commitment, therapy, and a willingness from both partners to confront the deep emotional wounds that have been created. In some cases, the relationship may emerge stronger than before, but in many others, it's simply too difficult to reconcile. For David, the question wasn't just about whether Emily's betrayal could be forgiven. It was whether they could both find a way to heal from this. Could they rebuild their marriage, or was it too far gone? Could he trust her again, knowing the pain she had caused? Could they navigate the deep emotional wounds and come out stronger, or would this betrayal haunt them forever? Rebuilding after infidelity requires vulnerability. Both partners need to be open about their feelings, their needs, and their fears. But even with all the right tools, therapy, communication, forgiveness, there's no guarantee that the relationship will survive. It's a difficult, often painful process, and for many, it's simply too much to overcome. But for those who do make it through, there can be healing, there can be hope, and there can be a future, though the path to that future is never guaranteed. David's story is far from over. The choice he faces now is one that many who've been betrayed must also face. Can he ever trust Emily again? Can their love survive this devastating wound? Or will he walk away, unable to move past the pain? The decision lies in his hands, and the road ahead is uncertain. Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. For David Harris, the hardest part wasn't just discovering his wife's affair, it was looking at her every day and feeling the weight of that betrayal. In the early days, nothing felt right. Every glance, every touch, every word from Emily felt like a lie, a reminder of the trust that had been shattered. It was as if their entire relationship had been upended in a single, devastating moment. In the aftermath of the affair, David found himself alone in a sea of emotions. Anger, confusion, heartache. But more than that, he was lost. He didn't know who he was without his marriage. How could he reconcile the man who once swore to love Emily through thick and thin with the man now sitting in front of a therapist, unsure if he could ever trust her again? They started therapy. But healing wasn't as simple as attending a few sessions and talking things through. At first, their silence was louder than their words. Each session was a battle, and there were days when David wondered if they were simply going through the motions. Could they really rebuild from this? Was there even a path forward for them, or had everything been permanently broken? David began focusing on his own healing. For the first time in years, he was forced to confront who he was outside of his role as a husband. He poured himself into his work, found solace in spending time with friends, and, slowly, he began rediscovering his identity, separate from the woman he had trusted with his life. It wasn't easy. In fact, there were many days when it felt like an insurmountable task. But, little by little, he started to rebuild himself. As Emily shared her feelings, her reasons for the affair, David found himself grappling with a new wave of emotions. He wasn't sure if he could forgive her, but he realized that forgiveness wasn't just about her. It was about him, too. It was about releasing the anger and resentment that had festered in his heart. He understood that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing to move forward, to no longer let the past define him. Through therapy and self-reflection, David and Emily began to understand that healing wasn't linear. There were setbacks. There were nights when they couldn't find the right words. There were moments when the wounds seemed too fresh, too deep. But each small step forward, each honest conversation, each attempt to rebuild trust, felt like a victory. Slowly, the pain began to shift. It didn't vanish, but it started to lose its grip on him. It was in these quiet moments, alone yet not truly alone, that David began to understand what he needed from the future. He began to realize that healing wasn't just about repairing the past. It was about building something new, something that was stronger, more resilient, and more honest than what had come before. Together, they learned to communicate in new ways. They discovered the power of vulnerability, of saying what had been left unsaid for so long. There were still moments of pain, of doubt, but there was also growth. There was resilience. And slowly, they began to rebuild a new kind of connection, one born from the ashes of their previous trust, but stronger because of it. It wasn't perfect, it never would be, but what they had now was different. It was real. And in a way, it was more authentic than anything they had before. They were no longer pretending to be the perfect couple. Instead, they were learning to embrace the imperfections, the scars, and the vulnerabilities that made them human. David's journey isn't over. The road ahead remains uncertain, filled with more challenges, more questions, and more hurdles to overcome. But the one thing he's learned through this journey is that healing is possible. Trust, though fragile, can be rebuilt. And though forgiveness doesn't come easy, it's a choice to let go of the past and embrace the future, a choice to find hope even in the darkest of times. Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. As we follow David's journey through betrayal and healing, we've seen the raw emotions that come with infidelity. But David's story doesn't end with his pain. It's not the affair itself that defines him, but what he chooses to do in the aftermath. It's the decisions he makes that will determine the future of his marriage, his heart, and his life. For David, and for many of us, the path forward is filled with tough choices, painful moments, and moments of grace. As we step into the final chapter of this journey, let's pause. What can we learn from David's struggle? What can we take away from the choices he made? If you've ever faced betrayal or any kind of heartache, you may find yourself questioning what comes next. How do you heal? How do you rebuild? Let's start with the most important lesson from David's experience. Healing is a process. If you find yourself in a similar situation, the first step is to allow yourself to feel the full range of emotions. It's okay to be angry, hurt, and confused. The betrayal is not just a betrayal of trust, it's a betrayal of your reality. It's natural to feel as though the world has shifted beneath you. It's okay to let yourself feel that. Secondly, take time for self-reflection. The healing process isn't just about fixing the relationship, it's about reconnecting with yourself. David found solace in rediscovering who he was outside of his marriage, and this space for personal reflection allowed him to find clarity and strength. Sometimes stepping away, even for just a short time, can help you regain perspective. It gives you the room to see who you are, what you need, and what you're willing to forgive. It's not about running away from your problems, but about finding your center so you can face them with clarity. Thing David learned, and something we can all carry forward, is that forgiveness is not just a gift for the person who hurt you. Forgiveness is a choice you make for yourself. It's a conscious decision to release the emotional chains that the betrayal has created. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing the behavior or pretending it didn't hurt. It simply means you're no longer willing to let the pain hold you hostage. You are free to move on regardless of what happened in the past. Forgiveness, in many ways, is the key to the door of healing. It doesn't mean everything will be perfect. It doesn't even mean you'll immediately trust the person again. But forgiveness allows you to take your power back. It's the first step toward rebuilding the life that was once yours, and possibly rebuilding the love you once shared. As you continue your own journey, whether you've faced betrayal, heartbreak, or any other form of emotional struggle, remember this: you are not alone. Many others have walked a similar path and have emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. If you've ever faced betrayal or worked through a difficult relationship, I want to hear your story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's open up this conversation together. Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. As we close the chapter on David's story, we are reminded that healing is never simple. It doesn't come with a set of instructions or a timeline. Some days are harder than others, and there are moments when it feels impossible to move forward. Yet, even after the deepest betrayals, there is always hope for growth, reconciliation, and renewal. David's journey is far from over. His story is one of painful truth, but it is also one of painful gifts for our lives. Healing isn't easy. There are no shortcuts, no magic words that can undo the damage caused by betrayal. But what David has learned, and what we can all take away from his journey, is that we are not alone. Every person has their own battles. We all face moments of despair, confusion, and hurt. And while we may feel lost at times, there is always a way forward, one step at a time. David's path was never going to be quick or easy, but with each passing day, he found a way to reclaim his peace. He learned that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about choosing freedom. It was about deciding that the weight of the past would not define the future. Today, David's journey is a testament to the human spirit's ability to heal. It shows us that even in the most trying moments, we can find strength we never knew we had. We can choose to let go of the anger and the pain, and we can choose to rebuild, not just relationships, but our own sense of self. It's a process, yes, but it's a process that can lead to new beginnings. If you found today's video helpful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of love, healing, and real-life lessons. Together we can keep learning, growing, and supporting one another. We're all on this journey together, and no matter where you are in your story, remember, there is always hope. In our next video, we'll explore the path of rebuilding trust after emotional infidelity, how to rediscover the love you thought was lost forever. Don't miss it. We'll see you then.